Hello and welcome to another episode of SHEDnanigans, and today we're going to take a look at this. In today's video it's going to be a relatively short one because we're just going to basically look at the shed in SHEDnanigans, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of where I'm doing all this basically, and I'll also show you some of the things that I've got in here, some of the things that I'm going to be working on, and then you can get a bit of a better idea of what we're going to be doing. Now obviously I've mentioned a bit about this shed before. I've also did a almost like a time-lapse build of this on the Gadget Joe video. I'll actually link that in the description below if you want to check that out. But the shed itself is, as I've mentioned before, it's quite an old shed. It's about I think it was 1944 or something daft like that, or it's 44 years or something like that. So it's older than me. It's seen better days, but it's been very well made. So we had to basically go and get this shed from the house. That was the stipulation. We would get it for free if we went and took it down and got it here. So we hired someone with a big van. It cost me £30, and me and a couple of my mates went round, and it took us a couple of days to get it down, and we got it here. It was then sat here in the garden for a good probably, I'd say 2 or 3 months before I actually started doing anything, because I had to build a new base to put this on basically. Now the house that I'm in at the moment is a rented property, so I couldn't really do much. I was going to try and make a brick built shed, workshop, whatever, but then you're going into all the different legalities, shall I say. So I wanted to do something that I could, in the event that I needed to move out, or we moved to a bigger place or anything like that, I'd be able to take it down with very little left here basically. So what I did is I took into account the size of the shed, and then I built a base that's actually a couple of inches wider on every angle, on every corner, sorry, and built the base. And how I did that is I dug holes that were about 18 inches deep, put some fence posts in there, concreted it up, and then I attached the wooden frame that I made to that, and then I've just basically built the shed onto that. Now I do have a lot of space next to the shed, which originally I was just going to put another shed there, but we're going to put that at the other end of the garden because I'm actually at the far end of the garden. So I'm out of the way of the house, so I can do the recordings and I don't have to listen to the kids shouting, and they don't have to hear me blabbering onto a camera. So that space there now, what I'm thinking is over time I'm going to start extending this into that space. There's a good probably 7 or 8 foot extra length that I can play with. All I have to do is basically extend the base, so I can do that over time. Then I can either do another build, another shed effectively next to it to do more, or what I'll probably more than likely do is take this wall down effectively and put it right at the end, so we can open this up a bit more, make the ceiling a little bit higher, because that's one of the downfalls of this shed at the moment. It is a shed. It's a large shed, don't get me wrong. It's 18 and a half foot long, and the inside space, once everything's in it, is about 16 and a half. I think it's either 16 and a half or 17 foot long, by a good I believe it's 10 foot wide. But inside it, the actual usable space is about 9 foot. So it's a good size already, but it does have the typical shed style roof, as in the angled roof. That roof has seen better days. After we had that recent storm, it's seen even better days. It's now fallen to pieces. Well, it's not. It's solid, but it needs re-felting. It needs all doing this. With a few holes that I've still got to fill in, but other than that it's relatively secure. It is double panelled and insulated on this part of the shed at least. So there has been someone tried to get in it before, but they've not really got very far, fortunately. So eventually, in one of the videos when I work on the roof, I might start thinking more about maybe extending that way. Now, if Kerry's watching this, don't worry, I'm not going to make any more mess. Yeah, so I can basically have a bit more workable space, because even though I've got quite a lot of space, with some of the projects that I'm wanting to do, I might end up needing a little bit more, so I can do it on this. Now, the outside of a shed I've purposely left looking like an old shed, because in the area that I'm from, you can't really have anything nice, because if I've started making it look really nice, I mean obviously I'll make it look nice, but if I started making it look like a workshop, it's just going to be a magnet for thieves. We've already had someone trying to get into it, so if I leave it looking relatively discreet on the outside, it should be okay. Obviously security is going to be something that I'm going to keep monitoring and that I'm going to really put as a top priority. I'm hoping to eventually get some PVC doors for the front of it to get rid of this basically barn style gate as a door at the moment. And then I'm going to put some cameras up. I've got some old monitors, some old TVs, some small ones that I want to put up somewhere so I can get a camera straight up. Not only so that it securely monitors everything, but also, I don't know if you've maybe seen Casey Neistat's little office space, little workshop space that he's got in New York. He has a large TV. Now I won't have a large TV, but I'll have a TV or a monitor that basically has a camera that feeds all the time to the outside, and I want to replicate that in here, so basically I can see what's going on outside. I can see if someone's coming up, I can see what's happening. If one of the kids needs to get me or anything like that when I'm working, I can see that basically. Right, I've spent a lot of time blabbing on here. Again, this video is going to be relatively shorter than some of the other ones, but it's just basically showing you what I'm working with. Now I'm going to take you around in a moment so you can actually see it. Now when I say I'll take you around, I'm going to stand basically here and just spin around in a circle, because there's not a lot of room. Even though it's a decent size, it is relatively limited. Now I do have old kitchen units going across, and an old worktop, and I've got this old desk. I've got other places. I've got a rack in, which you'll see shortly, and over here. So I've got places to put things, but again, over time, I'm going to start to change that up. So until eventually it becomes the larger workshop that I really want to have, and get it looking how I want it to look. Right, so I'm doing this handheld now, so it might be a little bit wobbly, a bit shaky, but hopefully you'll get a bit of an idea of what I'm working with here. Now it does look quite close up. There's not a lot I can get in this lens, because the lens I've got is a 24 to 100mm lens, and it's also a micro four phase sensor, so it is naturally slightly cropped in. Again, I'm going to upgrade the lens over time, but this is basically the main working area. As you can see, I've got the worktop running all across there. It is an old worktop. Again, I've not mentioned this before in this video, but I've mentioned it in other videos. This entire workshop has cost me £96, and you can tell. So as I mentioned earlier, I've got these units that are basically old kitchen units that I've got stuff put in there. So at the moment it's not really very well organised, but I've got old laptops and tools and such in there. I've got monitors. Down here I've got some, I've got my bandsaw, I've got some more tools, and then I've got these drawers. At the moment I've got plenty of microphones in here. Some of them work, some of them don't. To the right here I have some stuff that I need to sort through. You'll have to excuse me sniffling a bit, I've got a cold. So this here was actually gifted to me from Mick, formerly of Mayhems, and it's actually a photography table. It's a large metal fold out table that you put a light underneath it and around the side onto this, so that I can photograph things. Now at the moment I haven't really got the space to use that, to utilise that, but when we get the workshop expanded, then I should hopefully be able to do that on that. This is just a box for the camera, and this is one of the stands that I've got for it basically. This is a box of assorted fans, keyboards. I've got this, which I've got to hang up at some point. This was actually CNC'd by a good friend of mine who's also in the Grimsby area. He's got Create Modding. I've got the kettle, obviously, because the stuff that I need. This is just an old metal sign, but it's basically from the church that I go to. On the other side it does have the church writing on it, but the good thing about this is I can use it as a whiteboard as well, so I can write things on it if I'm doing some work. These are just some old signs that were gifted by my sister-in-law. I've got some more over here that I'm going to sort of dot around over time. Got an old shelf that's got some 3D filament on it at the moment. This is one of my old motherboards and a crimper. They're not really going to stay up there, I just put bits up there for the fun of it. This is the 3D printer that we assembled in a recent video. This isn't its permanent place. Actually, I'm going to put it inside the house next to my computer on my desk. That, or maybe do a space for it here and build an enclosure. But again, that's all stuff I need to learn how to work out. I do have electrics here in an interesting fashion. I've got the switches here, that's basically controlling the lights, as you can see. This is just a directional, I don't know if it's going to focus on this. Let me turn it off. This is just my old photo light, video light, and what I do is basically direct that around to point it for extra light from different angles. I'll leave it on this so you can basically see what I'm working with here. Now, these are some of the bits which I'll come across in a moment. These are some of the stuff that I'm going to be working with. Moving into the messy side of it, and this is the smaller part. Again, here is where you'll see the damage to the roof that I was talking about. I've got spaces here where it's coming through. There's damage where it's been ripped off the top here, and obviously damage on the front here. Now this all needs insulating, it all needs finishing off, and this is the current door that I've got on there. Now it's slightly strengthened with these, and it's been strengthened on the outside, but again it is just a rackety old door. I do have a bit of space and a little tiny window. Now the window I'm probably going to take out, but you can get a bit of an idea of a space if I look out here. This is that extra space that I can work with. This is another light, because I've got one already on top there. I might end up putting this one in here, or alternatively use it in the larger worktop. I've got also down here plenty of timber offcuts and a few bags of old tools and an old towel, etc. This is basically there while I was getting everything set up. This side I have a rack, and that's got a few of my computer parts on it, well, the boxes as such. I've got obviously my processor boxes, motherboard boxes, all sorts of stuff like that. I've also got old wiring cables. I've got my assorted stuff, because every man has a bag full of cables. I have bags and bags and bags and boxes and drawers full of them. So moving to this side, I have again a drawer full of rubbish. It's all stuff that I need to sort out. It's all stuff that I need to get tidied out. I've got old lights that I'm gonna that don't work anymore. I'm gonna fix up. And in here, I've got all sorts. I've got little tools, PCI razors, and all sorts. And then a few more tools in here, power tools, etc. Tiling stuff that's not actually mine, I need to return. And that's basically it. But where I do a lot of my videos at the moment is this desk here. This is actually my old computer desk that I had all my stuff set at. I've now got one which I'm using in my room, which is slightly taller, so I can put my 3D printer on it. At the moment my tripod, which is somewhere around, won't actually fit down this, but I'm going to make a mount for the camera. So at the moment it's just propped up on an old tub, and then it has a gold garden chair here that I basically look through, so when it's down you see what you would normally see. Moving to these, this is pretty much the last bit of the video, so if you're still watching, thank you. Right, this is one of the things that I'm going to be covering in the next few videos. Obviously, as I mentioned before, I have a channel called Gadget Joe, so I get sent a lot of computer stuff. Now this is a Mothra MT240 AIO. Now if you're not really savvy with computers and know what an AIO is, that means it's an all-in-one. Now, an all-in-one is basically a cooler for the processor on your computer. This bit goes to where the processor is, and then this leads into a radiator that's got an inbuilt reservoir, and that cools your computer system down. Basically, it uses these fans. I'm going to do basically an unboxing and an overview of this in one of the videos, so if you're not really into that, I'll make sure it's well labelled on the video so that you can skip that one. Alternatively, if you want to see it, if you're into computers and you want to see it, because this one is actually a little bit different, because the entire thing is ARGB, which means addressable RGB, the whole thing, including the tubing. We now take a look at this. You've probably already seen it a little bit. This is an original Commodore 64 with the cassette console basically here. That's all working, it's all running. I do have a box here with some assorted games in there. I'll do a couple of videos of restoring it back to how it was. I will do a video on restoring these keys, so obviously over time a lot of these old plastics, these beige hearing aid plastics, they start to go yellow over time, which you can see here. It's starting to go yellow, so I'm going to do a video on restoring them back to normal, but also I'm going to do a video on upgrading this slightly so that it doesn't use just these games, but it'll have a Raspberry Pi or something like that in there, so it'll actually become an emulator so I can run other games on it. Moving to the right, obviously it's the games that I mentioned before, a few PlayStation games. To the right again is a load of filament. I was actually gifted this from a good friend locally. I've got loads of different kinds. I've got TPU, I've got PLA, and all sorts of different ones. Again, I'm still new to all of this, so I don't really know what the difference is with a lot of them. That's stuff that I'm going to pick up over the next few weeks as I get to grips with the 3D printer. And that's pretty much it. There is obviously more stuff. I've got stuff in boxes that I'm not going to talk about just yet, because that's going to be coming up. I've got loads of stuff that I can work on. This, in a couple of weeks, I want to basically tackle this. Now the reason it's light behind there is because there's actually a big window behind this that goes for full length, so I boarded that up. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to be trying to expand everything this way and hopefully make this bigger, but this is effectively the space that I'm working with, and that's pretty much the shed. So as you can see, there's not a huge amount of room. It looks a bit less on the camera than there actually is. There's enough room to walk around and do certain things. Again, obviously it might be a bit of a shaky video, but hopefully you get a bit of an idea of what I'm working with. I do this all in my own time. It's not my job, so I do this as a hobby, and I'm just basically bringing you along the journey. And that's it. So if you like what you see, or you've got any ideas, or you think actually that could look a bit different, or you think there's something that could change in here, anything like that, if you just want to talk about it, let me know in the comments. Again, this whole channel, I want to be interactive. I want to hear your ideas of stuff. If you look at something that I'm doing and you think I'm doing it wrong, or you think I could do something better, or if you think I'm doing it right, let me know in the comments down below. The channel is already getting quite a good response. Now I know it's a new channel, I know it's a tiny channel, I'm not expecting it to ever go to thousands and thousands of subscribers. If it does, then that's a bonus. But I'm already at the moment sat at 49 subscribers. Now for a 3-week-old channel, that's not too bad. So for those that have subscribed and that are watching, thank you very much. The content will get better. There's a lot more content coming out. As I mentioned in my last video about the 3D printer, next week's video is going to be on that. Now I've got a bit of feedback already from quite a few people about how to set it up, how to dial it in, how to get everything ready. I need to learn about which filaments to use, how I need to store them, about stuff like enclosures for it. So I've still got a lot to learn, but hopefully in next week's video we can get everything going, everything running, and I'll get my first 3D print done and we'll go through with that. I've got big plans for the 3D printer, for some of the stuff that I can produce with it. Again, as I mentioned before, I'm wanting to get into metalwork. That's probably something that's going to come more down the line as the shed gets bigger, but I can still do certain things in here. I have got other stuff lined up. it's just silly stuff. Now, if you're familiar with Colin Fairs from a UK, who's also a UK maker channel, much more successful and bigger than I am, he basically makes projects in his shed, which is now his bunker, and he's just gone crazy. And I take a lot of inspiration from that. So I'm going to be doing similar sort of projects to that, but just not quite on his scale. I want to do stuff like, well, I'm not going to spoil it too much. I've got a lot lined up, basically. So if you want to see those and you want to see more, don't forget to press like, don't forget to press subscribe, so you can see the next video. And that's it. So, from me, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!